And thank you so much for having me here. I absolutely appreciate it. What I want to do is, first, is there anyone here that listens to my radio show and you heard the announcement? Wow! Thank you so much for coming. I do appreciate it. I want to tell those who are not aware of what we're doing, who we are, and what we're doing. My name is Peterson. I am the founder of a nonprofit organization called Bond, the Brotherhood Organization of a New Destiny. And we are rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. This coming Sunday, by the way, if the Lord is willing and the creek don't rise, we would have been around for 30 years. It's absolutely been amazing. It doesn't feel like 30 years at all, but it will be 30 years. And so what we're doing is first bringing back the order of God. And that order is God in Christ, Christ in man, man over woman, and woman over children. And unless we bring that order back, things are only going to get worse rather than getting better. We tutor young men and women. We work with all races around the world. But we tutor, we counsel. We have the best counseling service on this side of heaven, right? Most of the time you only need one session, even though people like to come back for a second. We counsel, we have an entrepreneur academy where I started this entrepreneur academy because I noticed that once the guys overcome their anger, they are really talented men. Really, they want to start businesses and things like that. So I started a credit union because we don't get money from the government. We've stayed away from the government because the government doesn't want you to mention God. They hate what's right? So we stayed away from them. And plus, the less government in your life, the better off you are anyway. And so we stayed away from that. But I started this academy, and then so that we can help the guys start their own businesses, I started a credit union so that we can loan them the money in case that, because some of these guys don't have credit, or when they were growing up, their mothers were opening up credit in their name. So when they go to get it, mama had already screwed them up, right? They can't even get the credit. So we are doing that. They have to pay back with small interest. We have men's forums every first Thursday night of the month. With men only, and then the third Thursday night of the month is for ladies only, and Sunday mornings for church, for everybody, men, women, and children. I have a radio show called DestinyPetersonTalk.com. We have a Fallen State TV show where we were working with men and women. It's just been absolutely amazing. So the reason I started all these things is that I grew up in Alabama on a plantation under the Jim Crow laws. And in those days, black people had a sense of moral character, right? They knew not to hate one another. Even though we were growing up under the Jim Crow laws, we were always told that the Jim Crow law doesn't mean all white people hate black people. It's just a law that was really started by the Democrats, and they wanted to control the people. You couldn't come together as one. But all white people were not racist, so-called racist. And by the way, I have proven, and I have it today for you if you need it, that there is no such thing as racism, sexism, homophobism, Islamophobism, deadbeat-dadism, or white supremacism. It doesn't exist. It's just a lie made up by the children of the lie in order to control you. Our battle is a spiritual battle. It's a warfare between good and evil, right versus wrong. We are a spirit created in the image of God. And Satan is a spirit, right? And he hates God. And so he's working through Psalm to destroy the children of God. And as long as you see life in a physical way, but not spiritual way, you will be deceived. And those words are made up in order to deceive you. When I was growing up on that plantation in Alabama, not once were we told it was racism. I never heard of the word. It was made up by the children of the lie. And the children of the lie, the liberal media, the Democratic Party, the right-wing Republicans, the black race hustlers, the devil Trumpers, and all of them. Do you know I call the president the Great White Hope? The great white hope. And we'll get to that in a minute. So in Alabama, we were told that there were good and bad in all races of people. You have people who were decent, you had the indecent people, and we knew that. And we knew that all white people were not racist. So I didn't grow up hating white folks. I grew up treating people the way that I would like to be treated because that's what our parents showed us. But what happened was, I moved to Los Angeles when I was 18 years old from Alabama. And when I moved to Los Angeles, I started listening to people like Jesse Jackson, and NAACP, and Congressional Black Caucus, and Louis Farrakhan, and all those people. And they were saying, and a lot of the black preachers, I have to tell you, most black preachers are not called by God, but by their mama. Mama said, like when the kids are growing up, if you say something that's really smart and nice, mama like, boy, one day you're going to be a preacher. So you grow up and become a preacher, right? And so they would not be called by God, but by their mama. So when I moved to LA, I started listening to those people. I was 18 years old, and I had this insecurity within me. I had insecurity, I was shy, I was afraid to speak up, I didn't know my purpose in life. I had like a void inside of me. And so I would ask the preachers, some of the popular preachers in Los Angeles too, I won't call their names here, but I would ask them, well, I read the Bible, I get up every morning, I pray, I do what you said to do, but nothing is changing. I still have this emptiness in me, a void that there was something that's missing. And so the preacher would tell me, oh, it's racism. It's the white man trying to hold you back. And I would hear Jesse Jackson and others saying that. And being an 18-year-old, 19-year-old guy, I believed into that. After a while, I started to believe it, even though I wasn't wasn't raised that way, right? And I have to tell you, we live by faith. And whatever we believe, that's what will control us. So if you believe a lie, the people that cause you to believe a lie will control you. So be careful what you believe because we live by faith. And so I started to believe that. And once I believed that lie, I thought all white people were racist. All white people. I started to resent them. And as you know, whenever you resent someone, whomever you're angry at, you become just like them. You become like what you hate. And that's why God said He wants you to discern, but don't hate. Have you noticed that most males, 99.999, not all, but 99.999.9, but not all. Most men are just like women. And that's because any man that has anger, any male that has anger is a woman. It's abnormal for men to be angry, but you become like your mothers because you resent them, right? And so I started to hate white people, and because I was hated, my life went to hell in a handbasket. I got worse. Even though I was going to church, I was praising the Lord, I was reading the Bible, I was doing everything the preacher said to do, right? But I wasn't getting better in life. I paid my tithe. I used to, you know how you file taxes? And when your tax come back, the preacher had convinced me that we should give 10%, right? I was giving them all my money. I'm like, I'm not getting better. There's something wrong here, right? So once I started hating white people, I went to hell in a handbasket because once you hate, you're no longer with God, and you just get worse in life. So long story short, I finally asked God, you know what? Let me see myself. Let me understand what's wrong with me. Because I'm reading the Bible, I'm going to church, I'm paying tithe, and I thought I loved my parents because I had that emotional love for them, right? And I thought I loved them. And so I asked God to just let me see myself. And so one day, I forgot I asked, and one day I'm getting dressed in the mirror, and at a flash, I saw that inside of me, I had a dark, wicked spirit. And I had never seen that before. And it wasn't like nighttime dark, it was like those spirits that come into your room when you don't love God. They come into your room, like they fly into your room, trying to hold you down in bed. It was that kind of spirit, right? And so I'm like, wow, I didn't know I looked like that. that on the inside. And I wonder, wow. And so I asked God to help me understand that. And he allowed me to see that the reason I wasn't having a perfect life was because I resented my mother who tried to turn me away from my father. And I have to tell you, the worst thing that can happen to a child, whether it's male or female, black or white, Mexican, Japanese, Chinese, it doesn't matter. The worst thing that can happen to you is to be turned away from your father. Because when you're turned away from your earthly father, you're turned away from God. And you turn toward the mother makes you turn toward her. And when that happens, you're turned away from God. And unless you return to your father, you will never know God. You'll know about him, you read about him, but you will never have perfect peace. So he allowed me to see that I needed to forgive. Because God, I have read in the Bible that if you have aught against anyone, if you're angry at someone, go and forgive them, and God will forgive you. So I'm like 38 years old, right? And I knew I had to go and forgive my mother if I wanted to be free. And so I went. My mother came to LA and went to LA to visit her sister. At the time, I was 38 years old. And so I'm driving over there knowing that I needed to forgive her, right? And I was like afraid. An adult male afraid to forgive his mother. And the reason I was afraid, because I didn't know how she was going to overreact. I didn't know if she was going to apologize, or if she was going to feel sad about it, or be mad about it, right? So I'm driving over there, and the closer I got to my mother, fear just overtook me. I got there, I get it out of the car, walking up the stairs, 2 or 3 steps there, and they were sitting in the front room there, her sister and my mother. And so I get in there, and Satan was like, you know how Satan talks to your head? It sounds like you, but it's really Satan talking to you. It's not God. It's Satan talking to you, but it sounds like your voice. And he was like, oh, don't talk to your mother now. She's having fun. You're going to destroy her vacation or whatever, right? But I knew God had allowed me to see that I had to forgive. So I go in, and I call into the bedroom, and I said to her, all my life I have resented you because you tried to turn me away from my father. You had no patience. You tried to impose your will on me, trying to make me be what you wanted me to be, and I didn't know it until now, but I resented you for that. And I didn't ask for forgiveness because God doesn't want us to ask for forgiveness. He wants us to forgive, because human beings won't forgive you if you ask for it. They'll control you with that. So God said, forgive and I will forgive you. So I told my mother, I'm sorry for resenting you. I realize now that you couldn't help it, because she was driven by the spirit of anger that came from her mother. And what her mother did to her was done to her. She did it to her children, right? And so I said, I'm sorry for resenting you. And for me, my mother started crying, and she said, you know what? I'm sorry I did that to you. I didn't know I had done that. And for the first time in my life at the age of 38, she told me about her life, and exactly what she did to me was done to her by her mother. But that moment forward, I've never been the same. I have no fear. I have no doubt. I have no worry. I have no insecurity. I have perfect peace. And that was 30 years ago. I have perfect peace. And I've gone through more hell since then than any other time in life, right? But I understand that it's a spiritual battle, and that the folks who are driven by, who hate the truth, they can't help themselves. When they hear the truth, they're going to attack you. They don't want to hear it, right? So I don't take it personally, because I realize they can't help it, as it was for me when I had that spirit of anger, which is of Satan. But so my mother was mad because when my father got her pregnant, he denied it. And she said, so she got mad at him, and she didn't want anything to do with him. And so that's why she didn't want me around him. But I had a yearning for my father. I had an emptiness, a void. And so I went and forgave him for that, and everything changed. I went and talked to my father. I wasn't mad at my father. I yearned for my father, right? But the mother tried to make me believe I was mad at my father. She tried to make me think that he was no good. He didn't love me, right? But all fathers love their children. And when fathers leave their wives, they're not leaving their children. They're leaving their wives. It's the mother and father who are fighting, right? But rather than the mother telling you, well, your father loved you, it's just that he and I couldn't get along. We were fighting. We were not meant for one another, whatever, right? They'll say, oh, your father was an alcoholic. Your father was no good. Your father was mean to me. And they'll make you identify with them and reject your father. And you're never going to have peace until you love your father. God said that there will come a day when I will return the children to the fathers and the fathers to the children. I want to encourage you to go to your mothers and forgive your mothers for what they've done to you. Because your mothers recreate boys and girls in their image. And Christ came so that that should not be, right? He came so that we can love him. That order of God, love God with all your heart, soul, and mind. So when you grow up, you're supposed to love your father and your mother. But because the mother hated the father and the father has not overcome his mother, he's just like his mother, his father didn't protect him. This cycle goes on and on and on and on through generation to generation. And so when I forgave my father and I and my mother, we became very close. But I was no longer a boy with them. I'm an adult, right? So when I'm around my parents, I didn't feel like I was a child and they were the parent. I'm a grown adult now. And that's how you're going to be once you forgive. It got to be, I became the parent and they became the children, right? So when I would go home to Indiana, my father was like, are you coming to visit this year? I'm like, yeah, I'll be there. Well, I need you to have a meeting with us. I need you to talk to them about your brothers and sisters so that they can forgive. And so every time I would go home, that would happen. And that's because I no longer had that fear. And I want to encourage you that you got to forgive. You must forgive. Learn to speak up, but don't hate. Learn to speak up. If you read Genesis, in the book of Genesis, it's all laid out. Long story short again, when Adam, before Eve came along, Adam loved his father. It was he and his father. He loved his father. And they communicated without words. They were one. And then God created Eve because God had a plan. And I'll tell you what the plan is. And so God created Eve. And at one point, Eve loved Adam, who loved the father. And all was well, right? And then the serpent came along, the deceiver, the liar, the hater, the misogynist, the racist, the baby killer, whatever you want to call Satan, right? Satan came along and he tried to get to Adam, but Adam was like, no, I love my father, I'm never going to doubt my father. So he kept going to Eve, and he's like, Eve, you know what? Don't listen to Adam. Don't listen to that man. That man is a misogynist. That man doesn't want equal. He doesn't want you to be equal, Eve. Don't listen to him. He doesn't want you to kill your baby in your womb. It's your body. It's your choice, Eve. Don't listen to him. Plus, he listened to his father anyway. Don't listen to that weak man. And so Eve was trying not to listen to the serpent, but after a while, she believed him. She believed the serpent. And the moment she believed him, she believed into him. Because what you believe into you, you believe into it, and it controls you. So Eve believed the serpent, and once she believed him, she could no longer listen to her husband, Adam. And so this warfare, this enmity started between man and woman. Because now Eve has her father's nature, which is the devil, and Adam still has his father's nature, which is of God, perfect love, right? And so they were going at it. And so finally Eve said to Adam, you know what? You need to listen to me. You listen to your father trying to control you. And long story short, Adam believed Eve. And the moment Adam believed Eve, Eve became Adam's God. Because whomever you believes into you and they control you. And so now God is no longer Adam God. Eve is Adam God, and Satan is Eve God, right? And so man is subject to the woman rather than subject to God. Thank God for Jesus. God saw, God and Jesus was sitting around watching TV or something one morning. And so God told Adam, I'd like to have some coffee. Let's turn on the TV and see what's going on. But go down to Cafe Mocha and get me Cafe Mocha or something. And so Jesus went down and got some coffee. And they came back and they were watching TV, the big screen TV that looks at the earth. And God was like, wow, look at the children down there. They're like going crazy. They're hating one another. They're killing the unborn children. The men and women are hating one another. The families are departed. All hell breaking loose. Men are married men. Women are married women. It's a mess. And Jesus said, and God said to his son Jesus, you got to go down there and do something about this. I need your son to go and sacrifice so we can turn this thing around, this spiritual battle around, right? And Jesus was like, are you sure? And he said, don't worry, son. I'll be with you. I will be with you. I will guide you through all things. I will shine the light through you so you can see what to do, right? And so Jesus was like, all right, if I have to. He's like, where am I going to live? Is the suburb or the hood? He's like, all right, just live. Don't worry about it. And so God created Christ. Christ came and made that sacrifice. And when he made that sacrifice, he reversed that order. That's why Jesus said, when you believe the Son, you believe the Father. You believe back into the Father, right? And then once you do that, life becomes perfect. I have to tell you, I have an amazing life. I graduated from high school. There was 18 kids in my class. I was number 18. And I was happy about that. I remember I made an A on a test once. It was like a multiple choice. You decided if it's right or wrong, true or false test. And I made an A on the test. I was like, yes! I made an A. And all my friends were surprised. But I say that to say it's not about your education. Education has its place, but it's really about the kingdom of heaven within. There is a new kingdom, and it is within us. It's hidden away from the children of Satan, right? And if you stand back and watch the world, you will see that the world is still the Old Testament. And that's why God said, the kingdom of heaven is within. Look within for that kingdom. And when you look within, you shall find. And what will happen once you go and forgive, because no one with anger will enter into the kingdom of heaven. You're not going to get in. Because anger is really hatred. They just changed the wording down through the years. They used to call it hate. Y'all hate, right? But anger is really hatred. And anyone who hates, they judge with hatred, not with love. Discernment is judging with love. You see what's wrong, you don't accept it, you speak up about it, but you don't hate it. But hatred is judging with hatred. You're playing God when you judge, and there's only one God. And he's in us and above us. And he's not going to let you in as long as you have that hatred, because anyone who has anger in their heart is the son or daughter of Satan. It doesn't matter how many Bibles you read. It doesn't matter how many Bible classes you go to. It doesn't matter if you praise the Lord. It doesn't matter if you hoop and holler. If you have one little iota of hatred in your heart, Satan is your daddy and not God. And so, but when you go and forgive, he will forgive you, and he will take that nature away from you and bring you into the kingdom of heaven within, and you will operate from perfect love. And it will be a light unto your feet. And all of those little habits you picked up, because when you have that anger, you're separated from him. And so you try from God by being separated from your earthly father. And when you're separated from God, you find yourself smoking pot. Anybody smoke pot? Pot here! Anybody? So you smoke pot, you use drugs, you have sex out of wedlock, you are doing all these things because you have guilt. And you're trying to find peace, and peace can only come from God, right? You're not even to keep the 10 Commandments, because the world is your God. You're looking for some money, friends, places, and things to make you feel better. You're looking for love in all the wrong places. But when you forgive, you will be completed. I have no void. I had that void growing up, but because I love my earthly father and I forgave my mother, you have no love for her. She made you believe that she's a victim. She caused you to identify with her, and now she controls you. The only way that's going to change, you must forgive her. So you need to go to her and say, hey, I'm sorry for resenting you. You drove me crazy. You drove daddy away. Because daddy can handle your mother. He was married to his mother. You become attracted to what you hate. So if you notice when these men get in this relationship, whether they live together, married, or dated, the man eventually become the boy and the woman become the mother. This cycle is repeated because the man never overcame his mother. And so to the mothers here, if you have turned your children against the father, you need to go and forgive. Apologize to your children. I'm sorry for turning you away from your father. Otherwise, Satan will go from generation. Look at the generation. Look at the black community. The black community is in a mess. And it has nothing to do with racism. Nothing at all. Nothing to do with sexism. It has everything to do with the mother taking over and the father being weak, pushed away. And these men, they're just like their mother. They are angry. They're looking, the men and women are looking for the love of a father, but they think they're looking for the love of a woman. But they're really yearning for the father. And if they were to return to the father, the black community would change just like that. Because when I was growing up, my parents, they weren't crying racism. My family members, I had one aunt that got married. They had something like almost 19 kids or so, right? And they were black, and they had land, and all of their kids went to college and graduated from college. They didn't cry racism. They had that family order there. They believed in that order. They believed in God. And so for you to start a new generation, you need to forgive your fiance, your girlfriend, or whatever, need to forgive her mother, so that when you do get married, God said, get married and go off. Get away from mama, get away from grandmama. Most of the time, it's the mothers who follow you around when you're married. Have you noticed that? You can live in West Hill, right? Well, mama, we're going to live in West Hill. I don't want to go to no West Hill to live. But my wife and I, we're going to West Hill. So you move to West Hill, all of a sudden you get this phone call. Hey, Journey, how you doing? I'm all right, mama, how you? I decided to move to West Hill. Why you moving to West Hill? Oh, just to see the grandchildren. Don't do that. Until the mothers repent for what they've done, don't let them around your family. You go and you raise your family, men. You're responsible for your wife and your children. And women, you need to forgive your earthly fathers so that when you do get married, you don't do to your children and your husband what was done to your family. All right? Because God really loves us. And you can't have perfect peace on earth. You can live a life without fear and doubt and worry, insecurity, depression, suicidal thoughts, and afraid. In Him, none of that stuff exists. In Him, there's only perfect peace. He will renew your mind and give you back yourself as you were before you were spiritually traumatized as a kid. You will start to remember God. I'm telling you, it's so amazing. He will renew your mind from what the mother has done to you to His mindset. All right? So forgive, and you shall be forgiven. I'm done. That was amazing. So listen. Forgive so that God can forgive you. Otherwise, you're going to live a rough life. You're not going to have peace. You can have peace on earth. You will be in the world, but not of the world. And don't let anyone tell you that you can't, right? Look within. Go and forgive. If your mother's apologize, that's nice. Don't have no expectation. I have no expectation. I have an organization I've been running for 30 years. I never made a plan. I didn't have a 5-year plan. I didn't have a 10-year plan. I didn't have any plan. I just take it one day at a time because I don't live in my imagination. God said, bring every thought into captivity. Yes. All thoughts are lies. No such thing as a true thought. You've never had a true thought, right? But He will reveal to you. So come into the presence of God. He is right there, and He will guide you. Don't live in the past. It doesn't exist. Don't live in the future. It doesn't exist. All you have at this moment. And check us out at rebuildingaman.com or just reviews and talk. Did you do the clicking it? Oh, yeah, you click. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it.